In the world of K-pop, a full five-member reunion of K-pop girl group Newjeans now appears unlikely, following the decision by two of its members to return to their management agency, Adore. According to the label on Monday, after discussions with the remaining three members, Hani decided to respect a court ruling affirming the validity of her exclusive contract and return to Adore. However, Adore said it formally notified member Danielle of the termination of her contract after concluding that it would be, quote, difficult to continue working with her.
Alright, so if you clicked on this video, I don't think you need much introduction to the global sensation that was or is Newjeans. So I'll just get straight into it. Newjeans has been quite in the judicial turmoil this past year, thanks to their corporate overlords at Hype and Adore. Basically, if I'm going to summarize it, they wanted to leave their initial company by claiming a breach of trust in the contract due to various factors. Stuff like alleged mistreatment, plagiarism, all that good shit. This was right after their beloved CEO and creative director was basically kicked out and got sued herself. I won't dwell on this too much since I don't think it needs to be discussed any further. It was just an absolute clown show, and it ended up with the girls having to get dragged back to their old company, much to the dismay of a lot of fans from other groups. So you might be thinking, alright, these girls took a risk, went to court, and lost. What more is there to this? And trust me, I was already bracing myself for a new comeback until I read the news that Danielle, one of the most popular members, got kicked out. Obviously, this came to a surprise to a lot of people because most of us thought that if there were any member to get kicked out, it would have been the most outspoken ones, like Hani or Minji. And please, before you accuse me of anything, just watch the rest of the video. This brings us to the case. I want to preface this by highlighting that all of this is alleged, since obviously the case did not even happen yet. On December 29th, 2025, Adore terminated Danielle's exclusive contract, stating it was difficult for her to continue as a performer with the label. This effectively removed her from Newjeans. Shortly thereafter, Adore filed a civil lawsuit against Danielle, one of her family members and former Adore CEO Min Hee-jin, claiming breach of contract, damages and financial loss caused by their year-long dispute and interruption to group activities. An Adore representative explained, "We discovered acts by Danielle that violated the exclusive contract, such as entering into a contract with another agency or engaging in independent activities," and added, "We demanded corrective action, but as this did not occur, we notified her of her termination," and also filed a lawsuit seeking damages against Danielle. The amount sought is around 43.1 billion South Korean won, which is around $30 to $44 million in USD. I think it's very important to highlight that Korean courts routinely reject or slash these categories because they are speculative, punitive, or not directly attributable to one individual. Lawyers note that idle contracts disputes do not award hypothetical profits, do not impose punishment-level damages, and do not assign group-wide losses to a single member. Even in cases where artists clearly breach contracts, courts usually limit damages to provable individualized costs, like specific training or promotion expenses, and often reduce them further on proportionality grounds. If the courts find a technical breach but shared responsibility or disproportionate punishments, they will afford a symbolic or reduce the damages, which means she will have to pay around $40,000 to $225,000, but this is just a hypothetical.
I have to constantly remind myself that these new K-pop fans, these Newjeans stans, most of them are literally teenagers. The other half lack common sense, okay? Because whenever I make a video about Newjeans, the comments are atrocious. They are just really bad. And I have to really sit there and think about it and realize like a lot of their fans are teenagers because they don't seem to know how the legal and justice system works. They don't know what a contract is. They don't know how a contract works. And honestly, employment, if we're going to be honest, because at the end of the day, Hybe and Adore, they are a multi-million-dollar company. They're a corporation, and Danielle is an employee of said corporation. And she breached the contract. She went against company policy, and they had to terminate her. For Adore and Hybe to file a lawsuit against Danielle and her family member, which allegedly is her mom, I'll get to that in a second, there had to have been substantial evidence and proof from Adore and Hybe's side to file that lawsuit against Danielle and her family member. They're still going at it with Min Hee-jin, but there had to have been substantial evidence, substantial proof for them to just file this lawsuit for $30 million. And they are probably looking to recoup their money because at the end of the day, Newjeans was an investment to them. I'm not saying the girls, I'm saying the group and like the group itself, okay? That was an investment to them. They are looking to recoup their money back. Not only that, but Danielle breached the contract. She had signed with a third-party company. You cannot do that when you are still in a legal dispute with said company. And then you go and sign a contract with another company. You can't do that, guys. That is not how that works. Like, a contract is legally binding you to that said company. It doesn't work like that, guys. You can't just you can't break a contract just because you say you're not like going to work for them anymore. Like, you broke the contract is terminated. Just because you say that does not legally make that right. Okay, that's not how this works. And I think a lot of fans are not grasping the reality of the situation here, that a contract is legally binding and you cannot just do whatever you want while you're in a legal dispute. And unfortunately, the Newjeans members and Minhee Jin and their parents went against that contract, and they did things that they were not supposed to do, especially when you are in a legal dispute and you're going to court with them. I don't know who their lawyers were, but this is clearly negligence on their part as well, because I'm sure they told their clients, like, don't do this. I can't imagine a lawyer telling them to go on TV, do interviews with CNN and BBC, and talk about this. They gave Adore and Hybe ammo. Allegedly, it is Danielle's mom that they are suing, that they filed this lawsuit against Danielle's family member. And allegedly, it's her mom because the way I see it is when this all transpired, the parents of Newjeans have come out with several statements, right? They've also been very active on social media, especially Danielle's mom. Danielle's mom has been very vocal online. And I say that it's Danielle's mom allegedly because when they did, quote unquote, re-debuted as NJZ, they had come out with a statement. And then when the injunction happened, they also came out with a statement, and it sounded like Danielle's mom allegedly was like the ringleader of all of this and working very closely, allegedly, with Minhee Jin. And that's how this all got to this point where Danielle's contract is terminated and Adore and Hybe filed that $30 million lawsuit. Because at the end of the day, they are looking to recoup their money. And Danielle's mom allegedly was making this really, really difficult and interfering with this whole process of Newjeans coming back to Adore and Hybe after the Seoul District Court favored Adore and Hybe in this situation. And like it sounds like it's her mom, because from what I have seen since this has really transpired, Danielle's mom has been very vocal online. And one aspect of this that has really perplexed me is Minhee Jin. And I say Minhee Jin because outside of the claims of embezzlement, right? The allegations of embezzlement and all of this fraud, how did she convince these girls? How did she convince the parents that this was the route to go? She manipulated them, like, to do this, because the Newjeans members and their parents were willing to go to bat for Minhee Jin and stand 10 toes down with her and go this route. And it's always perplexed me how she convinced them, right? Because this has all surrounded Minhee Jin. Like, this whole situation was because of Minhee Jin. And unfortunately, since this has all transpired from like a year ago, like, everybody has part of the blame of how we got here, right? In 2026, with Danielle being kicked out of the group, and now she's facing a $30 million lawsuit from Adore and Hybe. I have always wondered how Minhee Jin has convinced and manipulated them, especially their parents, right? And my sister made a really good point. She was like, well, it's kind of like a cult. Like, Korean people join cults because, they use these manipulation tactics. She's like, that's basically what Min Hee-jin is kind of doing. And I really sat there and thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I never, like, I'm not saying Min Hee-jin is a cult or cultist or whatever. I'm not. We're just comparing it to that because there's a lot of cults in Korea, and Koreans are unfortunately easily manipulated into joining cults. All right. And it's always perplexed me on how Min Hee-jin convinced them that this was the way to go, that they were going to leave unscathed, that they were not going to have any consequences or be in debt. That has always really blown my mind. And unfortunately, Min Hee-jin and their parents have really manipulated the public. They've manipulated fans into thinking that this is the only way to go, free the girls, all of this. And it's clearly evident. Okay. When I saw Min Hee-jin's interview, press conference that she did after this whole thing happened, right? I knew that this was not going to work out. And Min Hee-jin really did manipulate the public. She manipulated fans as well, because for fans to really think that Newjeans was going to come out of this with no consequences is honestly insane. Okay. As soon as I saw them do that BBC interview, I said, this is over. You just gave Adore and Hybe ammo. You broke the injunction that they had put, and you guys still re-debuted. Honestly, this is, I don't know how they move forward after this, guys. This is very difficult. I hope Danielle gets a really good lawyer, because she's gonna need it.
So I'm just going to point out the very obvious issue with this video, and it's that there's a lot of assumptions being made. For starters, acting like a multi-million-dollar company would never ever sue if they did not have any proof of contract breach is such a weird thing to admit you actually believe in, considering that these types of intimidation lawsuits are quite common in the corporate world. It's really funny seeing this American capitalist brainwash. Just think that every company is this godlike figure that would never ever sue without any proof. Anyone that's been alive more than a few years would understand and probably have seen many cases, especially in the capitalist hellhole that is South Korea. Again, she mentions that Adore needs to be making back their money. That is not a valid reason to terminate and isolate one member, even less to make them bear the burden of the whole group's financial loss. This is ridiculous, and a quick Google search would have saved my embarrassment. After Hybe won the first trial, confirming the validity of the exclusive contracts, all members of Newjeans accepted the ruling and waived appeal, effectively signaling their intention to return. Hybe also publicly promised to resume group activities. Against that backdrop, terminating only one member creates an appearance of inconsistent enforcement. If exclusive contract violation occurred during the collective dispute period, then under Korean contract laws, companies are generally expected to apply remedies consistently unless they can prove that one individual engaged in materially different misconduct.
It sounded like Danielle's mom allegedly was the ringleader of all of this and working very closely, allegedly, with Min Hee-jin. And that's how this all got to this point where Danielle's contract is terminated and Adore and Hybe filed that $30 million lawsuit.
Parents have the right to be implicated in their child's decision making, especially in stuff like contracts. They are also not legally obligated to shut up on social media, since they didn't even sign the contract in the first place, so why would they be legally responsible? Also, I have not heard of the Danielle mom story being true outside this weird YouTuber's video, and it's quite telling that you're using a cyber wrecker as a source. You know, the same one behind Kim Se-ron's suicide. Again, you admit in this video that this isn't even unique to Danielle. Korean lawyers know that parents are not presumed to be legal agents, that family involvement is common in idol disputes, and that courts require clear proof of authorization and causation. Therefore, unless Hype can show that Danielle's mother signed or conducted a binding contract on Danielle's behalf with Danielle's authority and caused measurable harm, the accusation against the mother is unlikely to stand on its own. The reason why members are so attached to Min Hee-jin is because Newjeans wouldn't have been Newjeans if not for her. People don't realize that when she left, she took her entire creative team with her. The group itself was already planned 7 years ahead of time, and it was constructed around the girls, so I can understand their insistence in staying with her. But I agree, they do have quite an unhealthy relationship with her.
I have always wondered how Min Hee-jin has convinced and manipulated them, especially their parents, right? And my sister made a really good point. She was like, well, it's kind of like a cult. Like Korean people join cults because, they use these manipulation tactics. She's like, that's basically what Min Hee-jin is kind of doing. And I really sat there and thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I never...
This statement about cults is just so insane, considering that half the members didn't even grow up in Korea, so they would not be really affected by this. They grew up in Australia, and the Korean members were more insistent to stay. Like, if anything, the Western individuality is what caused the more outspoken members to want to leave and to not just be stuck in the food of a giant company. America has plenty of cults, even more so than Korea, and it's kind of their fault that Korea has that many cults, but that's another video for another day. But you would never have said this if it was like an American case. So just don't mix up different cultural phenomena and act like they're related, because they really aren't. So let's take the time to read the comments. Most fans are unfortunately an echo chamber of factually incorrect information. I remember a Toki called the contract a glorified pinky promise with lawyers involved, and they all just ran with it. I mean, that's probably just a joke. And I mean, what is a contract if not a glorified pinky promise, huh? It's just a joke. And this comment is quite ironic considering this video is just some random misinformation stick together spoken by a smug lady. I don't know why bunnies insist all Danielle did was charity work and run marathons. They're quite insistent that the members have done nothing wrong in their lives. Okay, so the whole marathon thing, I think you can very much blame Adore, since they were not specific at all in their statement. And really the only unique activity Danielle did was that charity. So it's kind of natural that people just jump to that assumption. But it's probably something behind the scenes if they do have any proof. So yeah, bunnies are kind of being dumb right now. So again, they could have taken them to court for the whole rebranding thing. Okay, so at the time, Adore suing them would have been quite stupid, because the point was getting them back. The point was getting their money back. I just don't understand what's the point of this comment. Do you think the company was being nice for not suing them? This is their moneymaker, their only group. It would have been dumb to sue them. There's second generation SM idols that are still blacklisted in Korea to this day. So I've seen this comment so many times, and every time I read it, it annoys me to hell. Because why is this a good thing to you? JYJ won their case and got punished for it. You're bragging about a company whose contracts were ruled to be unfair and excessively long, with profit distribution being disproportionate. The members had the right to suspend or terminate their exclusive contract, but thanks to them, despite the constant cheering from you, the JYJ case is why idols today rarely get total broadcast bans. Agencies are more cautious about overt retaliation, and disputes now move toward injunctions and lawsuits instead of blacklists.
I keep seeing people compare Chu from Luna and Danielle from Newjeans, and I need everyone to understand why these two situations are completely different. First, Chu's case. Chu was removed from Luna by BlackBerry Creative after the company accused her of abusing power. The problem? They never provided evidence, and multiple staff members immediately came out to defend Chu. The courts later ruled in Chu's favor, confirming that the company's claims were false. She was financially exploited, had no power, and was ultimately scapegoated by her company to cover their own misconduct. Chu was a victim of company abuse. Now let's talk about Danielle. Danielle's situation is not about mistreatment or false accusations. Adore clearly stated that there were contract violations, and that her mother was involved in decisions that crossed agreed boundaries. This is a legal and governance issue, not a character assassination. Danielle is part of a group with massive public support, legal protection, and a company handling the situation through formal procedures. No court has ruled that she was mistreated or falsely accused, and many of the narratives going around are pure fan speculation. Next, the power dynamic. Chu had no leverage, no protection, and was silenced. Danielle has resources, representation, and a structured process in place. These are not the same. And finally, the outcomes. Chu was proven right in court and freed from her contract. Danielle is facing consequences tied to contractual obligations, not company abuse. So no, this is not history repeating itself. One is a case of a company abusing an artist. The other is a case of agreements being broken. Comparing them ignores the facts, the law, and the reality of both situations.
So, in this video, which is clearly made by AI and written by AI, which is very lazy, honestly, but the Chu case is much more complicated than some petty insults toward Chu. And it's really funny that you claim BBC didn't have any proof of contract breach, but I'm yet to see Adore's proof. The reason why people compare her case to Chu is that lawyers themselves repeatedly reference the Luna Chu case. The Supreme Court recognized that idol contracts are trust-based continuing relationships, and that breakdown of trust caused by the company can justify termination. Legal experts argue that claiming trust collapsed with only one member while restoring relations with others involved in the same conflict risks contradicting this doctrine. Chu's case set a precedent. And if you're too dumb to understand what this means, if Danielle can prove that this was just her being isolated from other members and Adore can't prove that she did anything that's unique, Danielle would pretty much win this. And I don't understand the point in comparing their financial situation, considering that either way, Danielle is in no way comparable in her power to a conglomerate like Hybe. I mean, Hybe is also 10 times more powerful than BBC ever was, so it's proportionate really. Finally, Chu was proved in court. Danielle's court case date has yet to even be announced, so it's very bold of you to already know the outcomes of it. Can I just say, this is why I despise AI, because people are way too dumb to actually know how to use it, and it further supports their already pre-made assumptions, which is why this video was so easy to debunk. Which again brings me to the initial point. It seems that a lot of people want her to lose. Why else would you assume stuff like this?
Okay, this might be my hottest take, but I'm tired of people infantilizing and oversimplifying the Minhee-jin, Adore, Newjeans, and Hybe situation by saying if you don't support Minhee-jin, then you stan $1 million company, which is Hybe. Like, of course not. I will never stan $1 million company ever. But to that same token, I'm never gonna stan a CEO. Minhee-jin was the CEO of Adore, and she was making millions under them, so it's kind of hypocritical to say you can't stan $1 million corporation and then turn around and stan $1 million CEO. How does this sound to you? I hate Amazon, but I love Jeff Bezos. I hate Tesla, but Elon Musk is pretty cool. I hate it when billionaires fly their private jets, but Taylor Swift is my favorite artist. Now, regarding Newjeans' claims that Minhee-jin was the only person that made them feel safe, thus they needed her around. I'm not Newjeans. I didn't experience what they experienced, and as a fan, I'm not going to invalidate that. I'll grant that to them. But also normalize people forming their own opinions. Let's just say Minhee-jin was indeed nice to the girls. What about the staff? Didn't she lose a harassment case in court? Didn't people come out saying that she was looking to bash other groups? Didn't she get caught lying several times? And these are all alleged just for my legal protection. Also, let's not forget that Hybe and Adore were willing to keep Minhee-jin as a creative director, I believe, instead of a CEO, but she didn't want that because she's power hungry. But ultimately, I don't stand corporations, nor do I stand CEOs, and I've always been saying this, and I will continue to say this. What happened to Newjeans was a result and the fault of the adults in the room, not the girls.
I don't think anyone seriously stands Minhee-jin, and if they do, they should be completely dismissed and ignored. But it's much more complicated than this. She has been a core part of the K-pop industry for decades. You can see her impact in the creative field. She came to represent the creative director model at a time where many in the industry feared creatives being replaced by committees and branding overpowering artistry. This is why a lot of people in the industry decided to take her side and Newjeans' side during the whole dispute. Yes, at the end of the day, this is billionaire against billionaire.
So y'all remember how in the video I posted yesterday about Adore basically terminating Danielle's contract, I was like, well, I've seen news, in comments about them suing her family members, but not necessarily Danielle. Well, that was quick. I don't know, I don't know why my brain didn't see, obviously this was the next step after they terminated her contract. Of course they would come after her for damages. She is the one who signed the contract. They wouldn't just be going after her family member and Minhee-jin. I don't know why I'm a little shocked, but yeah. I think what I'm shocked about is just the number. Because I people were speculating how much and oh my gosh, words. People were speculating the amount of damages, if they went after her, that she would have to pay. And I saw a couple of numbers floating around. One number that I saw was 7 million. So seeing that 30, by God. And I really want this to be a lesson to this newer generation, because what I have noticed is not only do we have the attention spans of a goldfish, we cannot understand playing the long game, and that things that you do now can have dramatic consequences later on down the line. Bunnies, y'all were so confident in the beginning. Y'all thought by them giving Adore a deadline, by them saying our contract was terminated, that it was just, they were done deal, that everything would be Gucci. It's not. Clearly, all of the steps that they have taken led to this. Now, I'm surprised that it's only one member, I would say. The way that they were digging their heels in this whole time, but I think that final court ruling, at least for the rest of the members, there's still one more member, I think, am I pretty sure, who's still like they're still going through discussions, but like that final ruling should have woken something up. It should have woken something up. This is literally the definition of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Because who's coming to save you now? Who? You were so pressed on Min Hee Jin. I mean, they're suing Min Hee Jin also. So it's like, she gonna have her own court case to worry about. You think that she's gonna pay special attention to you? Like, come on. Like, this is career ending. This is career ending, because I want y'all to genuinely tell me what company is taking on that liability. And remember, it's just the $30 million for her. We still have no idea what her family member is also going to be sued for, but we're talking about debt on top of debt on top of debt. No company is going to want to take that on.
Again, in this video, it's just a bunch of assumptions and weird glee. Because why are we so happy about this situation? I know Americans love their FAFO and that they're not very empathetic, but this is a bit much. No one here actually cares about like any of these people. It's about bragging rights, it's about proving a point without realizing there's very real people, and everyone's making up their own fan fiction in the comments, like painting these girls as mean spirited people or that they're all in a war against each other. Like, this is very bizarre behavior.
What happened to Danielle sucks, but she did violate that contract. They all did. They all violated that contract. Exactly. So why is Danielle kicked out? Danielle mama bad. All parents were so very outspoken throughout this entire thing. They arguably pushed Complex Con harder than the members themselves, with the exception of Hyen's father. Danielle signed contract though, so what did she sign? I don't know, but she ruined the image as well. According to who? Adore. The same Adore that, sat in court and said how vital Newjeans was to not only their company, but the industry as a whole, and how they needed all 5 of them back, only to get rid of a member. None of this is weird to you? Contracts are contracts. Weren't you just, celebrating the idol union, though? Well, that's different. Until it's Newjeans. Right, okay.
Look, I can agree with this video, but if Hype actually proved that Danielle signed or entered into a binding contract with another agency while her exclusive contract was valid, then termination can be lawful and selective termination becomes legally defensible. But Hype must prove a clear written warning was issued, a breach was specifically identified, a reasonable opportunity to cure was given, and Danielle refused or failed to comply. Look, I'm not sure if Danielle did or did not sign any contract. What I know here in this moment is that Hype currently has the burden of proof. Let's admit that she did sign the contract. What would likely happen is that she decided to accept the damages and just probably re-debut in another company. I would be surprised if she did, but you never know. She's grown enough to know the consequences and she has enough money to afford lawyers. Bye!